When your husband's idea of romance is a data breach prevention retreat, you start measuring loyalty in dollar amounts and reward tiers. Mine clocked in at $612.48, neatly labeled on our shared credit card as couple's escape package. I didn't scream, throw dishes, or collapse in dramatic fashion like the women in streaming dramas who somehow always have perfect mascara during emotional collapse. I just took a screenshot, renamed it Research Track Invoice YRO1.pdf, and dragged it into a folder titled Future Court Exhibits. Color-coded, of course. I'm a photographer, not a savage. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I know the exact moment things shifted, the tiny hinge the whole marriage door swung on. Not a fight, not a tearful confession, just Rowan walking in one ordinary afternoon, smelling like he'd rolled around in a magazine cologne ad. Professional scenting, he called it, said it helped with client confidence in high-stakes cybersecurity negotiations. I nearly congratulated him for stacking that many meaningless words into a single sentence. I didn't, though. Strategic restraint is a skill, like archery or parallel parking. A month before that, he started keeping his phone on airplane mode whenever he was home. Hackers can track signals, he told me, which sounds credible if you've never met an actual hacker or an actual adult. He took calls in his car, always locking the garage door, always returning with a look that said, "I'm very important," and not at all lying through my teeth. The first few times, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. The next few times, I gave him side-eye. And the last time, I gave him exactly what he didn't see coming. Silence. Not passive, helpless silence. Calculating silence. That's what nobody tells you about betrayal. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one planning the loudest ending. We live in a neighborhood where people pretend to care more about lawn height than moral integrity. Sprinklers run on timers, smiles run on caffeine, and gossip runs on premium unleaded. Most of it pumped by Rowan's older sister, Iris. She and her friends treat the HOA bulletin board the way ancient villagers treated stone tablets. Sacred, unchallenged, full of announcements no one asked for. There's a rule about neutral house paint tones, so strict it might as well come with a Swatch police. Another about yard decor cohesion. You can violate basic human ethics here, but heaven help you if your patio furniture is mismatched. It was a Tuesday morning, the most forgettable day of the week, really, when the hotel charge appeared. Rowan had left early, something about internal briefings. He always uses the kind of phrasing that sounds legitimate, like he swallowed a corporate handbook and didn't chew first. I logged into the credit card portal to pay the water bill, and there it was. Heaven's Bend Boutique Suites, Couples Escape Package, $612.48. Items included fondue tray, rose petal service, chocolate-covered strawberries, and something called Velvet Curtain Evening Amenity, which sounded less like cybersecurity research and more like the kind of thing that requires discreet laundry service. And, because the universe has a sense of ironic timing, a tiny rewards icon beside the charge cheerfully informed me, double points earned. Now, Rowan loves reward systems the way toddlers love forbidden staircases. That was his first mistake, cheating on a joint card linked to a transparent, trackable, interface-friendly loyalty system. If you must betray a spouse, at least have the foresight not to do it through a program that literally advertises "see all activity" in bold letters. I clicked the activity tab. There it was again, like a digital smirk. Half the points from the stay still unredeemed, meaning he planned to use them later, meaning there was a sequel planned, meaning I had all the evidence I needed to begin a different sequel, the one where he learned that I could run an investigation too. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel the need to. I just felt clarity. The kind you get when the photography light finally hits right and every flaw shows up in perfect focus. Rowan always said I had too much emotional range for a portrait artist, but look at that. Turns out the right lighting can expose emotional fraud as well as cheekbone shadows. The thing about being betrayed is that it doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you could be if you stop trying to be polite. The version of me that smiled through tight dinner parties and listened to Rowan explain encryption to me like I wasn't familiar with basic technology, that version was a placeholder. The real me walked over to my desk, powered up my laptop, and opened a blank tab. Title, Strategic Response Plan. I began writing steps. Step 1, confirm cheating. Step 2, find leverage. In progress. Step 3, extract advantage. Step 4, walk away on my own terms, preferably wearing sunglasses indoors like a retired spy. Before I could finish the list, a notification slid across the corner of the screen. Your recent stay at Heaven's Bend has activated a limited-time romantic rewards offer. Redeem 2-for-1 bonus nights now. Rowan's name was still tied to the account, so it popped up on both our laptops. I stared at it, and a grin gave itself permission to exist on my face. Game on. The truth is, Rowan underestimated me because I didn't act like the dramatic wives on streaming services. I don't throw wine glasses. I don't chase people down hallways screaming. I'm the quiet type, the kind that leaves receipts taped to consoles. We met 9 years ago, back when he still believed subtlety was a virtue and not a marital inconvenience. I was shooting grad portraits and dabbling in studio lighting. He brought me coffee with oat milk, claimed to admire how I captured truth in expressions. I should have asked which expressions he meant, the sincere ones or the fake ones. Looking back, I can pinpoint 100 small shifts. The way he started calling my photography a nice side hobby instead of my job. How he corrected me in front of his co-workers, subtle enough that the correction sounded helpful. How he started slamming the refrigerator shut harder than necessary, as if appliance doors owed him respect. People don't turn into strangers overnight. They just shed layers you mistakenly thought were personality. But here's what Rowan forgot. I work with faces. I live in little details. I know when a smile doesn't touch the eyes, and when someone is sitting at a flattering angle only to distract from something worse. The world thinks photographers just press a button, but good ones study patterns. And Rowan was a pattern with 2 options: ignore it or expose it. By 4 p.m., I had sorted every shared account we had: streaming, cloud storage, software subscriptions. He controlled the cybersecurity in other people's lives. I controlled the household logins. An odd kind of poetic symmetry. While I worked, I imagined Rowan, in whatever boutique hotel suite he'd rented, pouring chocolate over someone who thought he was charming. I hoped she at least made him pay for valet. An alert pinged again, this time a rewards reminder for unused bonus nights expiring soon. I opened the portal and scrolled. It was all there. Enough points for a luxury spa weekend, private suite, mountain view. He hadn't redeemed them yet. He thought they were waiting for him. How lucky for me that loyalty programs don't question who cashes in, as long as the name matches on the account. There's a particular kind of satisfaction that comes from using someone's own tools against them. It's like realizing the villain left their entire plan written on a whiteboard, and you're already in the room with the marker. I booked the spa, upgraded the room, ordered the couple's massage, minus the second participant. Then I printed the full invoice, large font, bold, itemized. It looked like a restaurant check for a romantic comedy, written by someone who'd never experienced romance or comedy. I taped it to Rowan's gaming console. Right on the shiny black surface, he polishes more often than our communication skills. Scotch tape, perfectly centered. I added a sticky note. Research confirmed. Points redeemed. You're welcome. The note was in pink Sharpie. Something about using cheerful stationery for devastating messages thrilled me. Around sunset, I made tea and sat at the kitchen island, waiting. Not anxiously, not nervously, just waiting, like a person watching a thunderstorm roll in. Already indoors, dry, knowing the roof is sound. Outside, neighbors walked perfect little dogs and pretended they weren't analyzing every porch they passed. You can always tell when someone knows something. Their voice gets lighter, their compliments more frequent. This neighborhood breathes gossip like oxygen. It only needs one spark. Rowan came in at 7:42 p.m., smelling once again like expensive dishonesty. "Long day," he said, kissing the air vaguely near my cheek. He walked straight to the console, mumbling about updates. He saw the receipt, stopped, read it again. Silence, but not thoughtful silence. Static silence, like his brain refused to load the page. "Elara," he said slowly, "I can explain." There it was, the classic line, the anthem of guilty spouses everywhere, usually followed by improvisational fiction. I took a sip of tea. "Can you?" I asked. "Because unless the Velvet Curtain Amenity is a firewall protocol, I'm having trouble seeing the cybersecurity angle." "It was research," he insisted, already sweating, not metaphorically, actually sweating. "Hotels are common targets. Loyalty systems are vulnerability points. I had to test them." "Oh." I nodded, as if struck by genius. "So you needed fondue to fully simulate the risk environment?" He opened his mouth, closed it, tried another approach. "You redeemed the points?" "That was my professional budget." "Oh, I know," I said, "which is why I professionally spent them." He stood there, jaw working like he'd misplaced an entire alphabet. "You don't understand how my field operates." "Maybe not," I said, "but I do understand receipts, timestamps, and joint accounts." It was almost poetic, how the room seemed to shrink around him. He shifted, tugged at his collar, tried to reposition the moment in his favor. Classic Rowan. Rewrite the rules mid-game, then accuse the other person of cheating. "You're overreacting," he said. "This is nothing. I'm handling it." "You always are," I replied, "right up until you aren't." For a second, his eyes flicked toward the kitchen window, as if wanting to check whether neighbors could see. In this neighborhood, the threat of being overheard is more terrifying than legal action. No one fears consequences here, only humiliation. He walked off, muttering about encrypted reports and confidentiality. I let him go. The argument wasn't the goal, the collapse was. 30 minutes later, I passed by his office door and saw an email open on his screen. Subject, ethics review pending. His firm had flagged the expense. He hadn't told me, which meant the spiral had already begun, and I hadn't even pushed yet. Good. Saves time. I went to my desk, opened my laptop again, and added a new line to the plan. Step 2B, let him talk himself into quicksand. Then I sat back and smiled. If loyalty was a game, he had just cashed out his last free life, and I had only begun to play. By the next morning, Rowan had decided to behave as if the previous evening had been a minor misunderstanding, something that could be smoothed over with coffee and over-explanation. He made eggs, which he never does, and hummed off key in a way meant to signal emotional normalcy. "I think we both said things we didn't mean," he offered, as if we'd simply argued over paint colors. I didn't remind him that I hadn't said much at all. Words are like credit, better saved for moments when the interest rate favors you. He sat across from me, fork in hand, trying to gauge whether his charm still worked. It didn't. "You know," he said, chewing slowly, "you can't always believe what things look like online. Sometimes a label is misleading." I set down my mug. Sure, that must be why Couples Escape Package actually meant solo cybersecurity simulation. Very innovative branding. He blinked, waiting for a sign of softness that wasn't coming. I smiled faintly, the polite kind that says, "I've already written the sequel to this conversation, and it doesn't end well for you." When he left for work, if that's what he was still calling it, I turned on the stereo and made the house bright, cleaning music. Not because I was sad, but because scrubbing countertops has always been my version of meditation. There's something oddly satisfying about transforming chaos into order, one disinfected square at a time. Between polishing the sink and organizing camera lenses, I logged into our shared accounts. I'd already scoped out the loyalty system last night. Now it was time to finalize what I'd call the refund portion of the relationship. He still had a healthy balance of travel points from his so-called research trip. They were practically begging to be used. I scrolled through redemption options, vacation packages, electronics, even gift cards, but none of those had the right message. I wanted something subtle yet devastating. Then I saw it. Celestine Springs Spa and Retreat. Serene landscapes, eucalyptus facials, rooms with fireplaces and private soaking tubs. A couple's package, conveniently enough. I booked it. 2 nights. 1 guest, full spa upgrade. When the confirmation email landed, I forwarded it to his work address with the subject line, security test completed. Then I printed the invoice, highlighting every syrupy detail. Champagne arrival service, romantic turndown, chocolate-covered strawberries. I taped it, again, perfectly centered, to his gaming console. My artistic eye demands balance, even in revenge decor. While the printer still hummed, I started step 2 of my plan. Transfer control of everything digital that tied us together. Internet, streaming, music, cloud storage, all switched to my name. I didn't remove his access. That would have been obvious. Instead, I demoted his accounts to secondary user, pending approval. It's remarkable how powerless that phrase sounds once you realize it applies to your life. By noon, I had also changed the passwords on our smart home hub, meaning the lights, thermostat, and even his precious gaming chair were now at my command. If I wanted, I could make the chair vibrate slightly every time he sat down. I didn't. Yet. My phone buzzed with a text from Iris, because of course it did. Heard you two had a little disagreement, she wrote, punctuating with a cheerful heart emoji. Everything okay? I stared at it. The HOA grapevine works faster than the postal service. Everything's perfectly under control, I replied, just testing system vulnerabilities. She sent back a laughing emoji, unaware she'd just received the truest statement of the day. When I arrived at the spa later that afternoon, the world smelled of lavender and muted wealth. The receptionist smiled like someone trained in high-level customer pacification. Welcome, Mrs. Maddox. We have you down for the romantic reconnection package. For one? That's right, I said, setting my camera bag on the counter. It's more of a personal experiment. Her smile faltered for half a second before the professional mask returned. Of course, we believe self-connection is just as meaningful. I'll put that on a pillow someday, I said. The suite was gorgeous. White walls, silver fixtures, a bathtub large enough to fit my grievances. I poured tea, sat by the fireplace, and took a few pictures of the room. Light through steam, reflection in glass, a half-empty cup beside untouched strawberries. Art thrives on irony. Later, as a therapist massaged my shoulders, she murmured, "You seem tense." "I'm calibrating," I said, "running an internal audit." She laughed softly, thinking I was joking. Between treatments, I checked my phone. A flood of messages from Rowan. "Where are you? Why would you do this?" These points were for work. Then, "You can't just take what isn't yours." I typed back, "Actually, that's exactly what loyalty programs are for." He didn't reply. By evening, I uploaded a short time-lapse of my spa stay to our shared cloud, set to tranquil music. Title, Security Test Completed. It synced automatically to our family folder, which means his office computer would receive it. I pictured him there, in some glass cubicle, watching me soak in serenity while his professional world quivered around him. That image was nearly as soothing as the eucalyptus steam. On the second morning, While waiting for my facial appointment, I checked our bank account. One small transfer appeared, his attempt to move money to a private account. Cute. I moved it back within 2 minutes. Cybersecurity consultant, meet basic online banking. When I returned home, the house smelled faintly of his cologne again. Rowan stood by the counter, holding the spa invoice. His jaw was tight, his eyes rehearsing anger. "You stole from me," he said. "From us," I corrected. "Community property, remember. I'm merely redistributing resources." "This isn't funny, Elara. That was my work budget." "You should have labeled it differently then. Maybe something less romantic." He threw the paper down. "You're sabotaging my job." "Am I?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Or did your job sabotage itself when it started charging strawberries to our joint card?" He paced the kitchen, hands on hips like an actor searching for his line. "You don't get it. My firm expects results. I'm testing systems, doing real-world analysis. These hotel stays, these transactions, they're all part of it." "Does the firm also require velvet curtains?" I asked. "Or was that your personal addition to the research environment?" His glare could have melted glass. "You think you're clever, but you're jeopardizing everything." "I think I'm organized," I said. "There's a difference." For a few tense moments, neither of us moved. The fridge hummed, the clock ticked, the world continued its unremarkable rotation. Then he sighed, shifting tactics. "Look, we can fix this. I'll reimburse the account. We don't need to make a scene." "That's thoughtful," I said, "except I'm not interested in scenes. I prefer documentation." He stared at me, confusion mixing with something close to alarm. Maybe he realized then that I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't going to cry or beg for explanations. I was conducting an operation, calmly, legally, thoroughly. He stormed into his office, muttering about encrypted reports, and I heard the furious tapping of keys. I poured myself more tea and opened my laptop. The spa photos were still uploading to the cloud. I watched the progress bar inch across the screen. Rowan's firm would likely see them soon, given that their security team monitored employee files for unusual activity. If they asked questions, I'd simply explain that he'd granted me shared access months ago, which was true. He even bragged about setting up the permissions himself. Around 6, he emerged again, face pale with frustration. "My account access is limited," he said. "Something's wrong with the network." "Maybe it's testing loyalty," I offered. "Elara," he snapped, "this isn't a joke." "I know," I said softly. "It's research." He glared, then left the room. A moment later, the sound of the front door echoed through the hallway. I walked over and gently locked it behind him. That night, I cooked dinner for one. The quiet was refreshing. I set the table with care. Linen napkin, candle, a plate of roasted vegetables that would photograph beautifully. I even took a picture of the empty chair opposite mine, captioned, "Reserved for future peace of mind." After eating, I tidied up, then walked into his office. The monitor glowed with a half-written email. To Compliance Department. Subject, clarification on expense review. He hadn't sent it yet. I saved a copy to my external drive just in case. Evidence is best gathered, while the other party is still convinced you're too gentle to collect it. At midnight, a notification blinked on his screen. New message from his firm. I leaned closer. The subject line read, "Preliminary audit initiated. Perfect timing." The next morning, Rowan tried charm again, but this time it felt like watching a fading performer repeat yesterday's act. "I might have overreacted," he said, buttering toast he wouldn't eat. "Stress does strange things to people." "True," I said, "but accountability does stranger things." He winced. "You're enjoying this?" "I'm documenting this," I corrected. Enjoyment would require surprise. He shook his head, grabbing his briefcase like it was a shield. "You can't just mess with someone's career over a misunderstanding." "I didn't," I said. "You did." He left without finishing his toast. I watched from the window as he got into his car, shoulders stiff, checking his phone repeatedly. When he drove off, I finally allowed myself a small laugh. Not loud, just enough to acknowledge the absurdity of it all. Later that day, Iris texted again. "He seems upset. You two need a night out." "Maybe that new Italian place," I replied. "He's already dining out plenty, from what I can tell." She sent back a confused emoji. I didn't elaborate. In the evening, I went to my studio to work. Photographing clients' portraits always centers me. The balance of light and patience, the focus on detail. But that night, I pointed the lens at myself. No makeup, hair up, plain backdrop. The camera's click was steady. I captured every expression. Calm, focus, quiet triumph. Not gloating, just awake. I named the file Phase 2. Rowan came home late, muttering into his headset about protocols and system flags. He didn't notice me sitting in the corner of the living room with my laptop open. When he finally did, he startled slightly. "You're still up?" "Just editing," I said. "Art project." He eyed me, suspicious. "You're not planning something, are you?" I tilted my head. "Why would you think that?" He hesitated, then gave a nervous laugh. "Because you're calm. Too calm." I smiled. "Maybe I'm just efficient." He looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find footing. "You know, you've always had this thing about control." "That's funny," I said. "I was just thinking the same about you." He retreated to his office. A few minutes later, the sound of keys clacking again filled the hall. I waited until I heard the soft ping of his email, then quietly unplugged the Wi-Fi router. When he came storming out, face tight with confusion, I handed him a sticky note. "Network under review," it read. "Please contact administrator for access." "You think this is cute?" he demanded. "No," I said, sipping tea. "I think it's accurate." He stared at me for a long moment, then walked out the front door again, muttering something about needing air. After he left, I reopened my plan and added the next step. Step 3. Let him watch the walls rearrange themselves. The thing about revenge isn't the moment it lands. It's the quiet preparation, the precision of balance. I wasn't breaking his world apart. I was simply removing my contribution to it, one piece at a time, until all that remained was his own mess. That night, I slept soundly, and somewhere between dreams and morning, I realized something important. I didn't want an apology. I wanted symmetry. He had called deceit research. I was just proving his theory. The first sign that Rowan's carefully engineered universe was starting to collapse wasn't the ordered email, or the tense way he held his shoulders like he was bracing for invisible hail. It was the quiet, not the peaceful kind. This was the kind of silence that buzzes, like a speaker left on with no music. A house full of unsaid things will hum louder than any argument. He didn't greet me the next morning, just moved around the kitchen like a stranger who'd misplaced the floor plan. He didn't ask why the coffee machine now required my login. He didn't mention the router's new password. He didn't even complain when his gaming console launched a message saying, "Primary user access pending verification." He just stared at the screen like it had personally betrayed him. Meanwhile, I watered the plants. At 10 a.m., his corporate laptop chimed, sharp enough to cut through the silence. He opened the message, and I watched from the hallway as his expression stiffened. Audit notice, round 2. This time, not preliminary, official. I couldn't see every word, but I caught the phrase, "expense discrepancies requiring clarification," and the unmistakable bold red formatting of "review escalated." I don't work in cybersecurity, but I do recognize the digital version of "we're not buying this anymore." Rowan snapped the laptop shut and exhaled, like someone trying not to punch a decorative vase. "Everything okay?" I asked, voice smooth as almond milk. He glanced over, reading my tone like a foreign alphabet. "Fine," he said. "Just process stuff." "I love a good process," I said, especially the kind with phases and consequences. He didn't respond, not verbally anyway. His glare had punctuation. By noon, the whole HOA seemed to know something was brewing. That's the thing about our neighborhood. Nothing stays small here. A raised voice indoors becomes a rumor on the sidewalk, which becomes a whispered headline near the recycling bins, which becomes a story with fan theories by sundown. Someone probably heard Rowan muttering on the phone yesterday, and now the resident grapevine was threading together a scandal quilt. At 1 p.m., I got a text from Iris, because fate has a sense of timing. Iris, everything okay with Ro? Got a weird vibe yesterday. Me, he's just navigating a system audit. Iris, oh no, like, financial or personal. Me, in his case, unclear which is worse. She sent 3 wide-eyed emojis, the suburban equivalent of passing popcorn. Around 3 p.m., I sat at my desk and tried to edit a photo set, but my mind felt busy, like it was already 4 steps into some future I hadn't written down yet. I opened Rowan's loyalty portal again, not because I needed more information, but because I wanted to be sure I was still ahead. The interface was now flagged with a bright banner. Account under review, pending corporate verification. I laughed out loud, not dramatically, just a quiet exhale of satisfaction. Corporate audit and romantic audit happening at once. Symmetry really is an underrated art. And that was when I noticed something new. On the transaction log, beneath the spa stay, beneath the fondue add-on, beneath the strawberries, was a smaller charge. Boutique gift shop, silk wrap and candle set, gift option noted. No initials, no greeting, but the system listed the shipping address. Not ours, not his office, a condo across town. That was the thread I needed. A quick search pulled up the occupant. Talia Quinn, lifestyle influencer, wellness content creator, obsessed with affirmations and filtered sunlight. Her social feed was a nauseatingly curated grid of self-care quotes, yoga poses, and herbal smoothie bowls that looked like they tasted like regret. She had 118,000 followers, and a bio that read, "Energy is currency, spend wisely," which was funny, considering someone else had been spending quite generously on her behalf. I scrolled her posts until I found exactly what I expected. A boomerang video of her in a silky robe, twirling in front of a mirror, time-stamped, the same weekend as Rowan's research retreat. Caption, "When the universe sends surprises," #, is deserved. The robe in the video, the same color listed on the invoice. Well, that connected the dots. I didn't rage, didn't spiral. I just copied the post link, added it to my future court exhibits folder, and sat back in my chair, feeling the kind of calm that comes right after snapping the final puzzle piece into place. That was when I remembered Jake. Jake lives next door, works with machinery in his garage, like it's a personal religion, owns a drone he uses for aerial inspection projects, which I'm 99% sure means recording fireworks and then adding dramatic music. He's harmless, quiet, and always willing to lend a tool. I walked over. He was adjusting something metallic that looked like it belonged in a robotics competition. "Hey, Elara," he said, pushing up his goggles. "Need a socket wrench? Spare ladder?" "Actually," I said, "I need to borrow the drone." His eyebrows lifted. "You're getting into aerial photography?" "Let's call it situational observation." He grinned in a way that told me he didn't need more details. 5 minutes later, I was back home with the drone and headset controller. I didn't take it for a test spin yet. First, I needed the timing right. Talia's feed showed she hosted livestream wellness afternoons by her pool every Wednesday at 4:30. Today was Wednesday. It was 4:17. Sometimes the universe doesn't send signs. It just sends schedules. I powered up the drone, opened her profile, and watched the countdown to her live session tick. 4:23, 4:26, 4:29. When her camera went live, she appeared in a wide-brim hat and a robe that matched the one from the invoice. Soft music played. Sunlight over the pool. Comments flooding in. "You look radiant." "Where did you get that wrap?" "Manifesting your glow." I eased the drone into the air. It rose smoothly. Jake takes care of his toys, and cleared my yard in seconds. The camera feed showed rooftops, hedges, patios, all lined up like perfect suburban squares. Then Talia's property came into view, her pool glimmering like a screensaver. I angled lower. Not invasive, just observant. If Rowan wanted field research, we were all doing it now. At first, she didn't notice. She sipped her tea, talked about aligning the feminine self with restorative sunlight, and adjusted the robe so it caught the light just right. Viewers sent heart emojis. Someone asked if Rowan was the guy behind the camera. I nearly choked on my own air. Then she looked up. Then she squinted. Then she scowled. Does anyone else hear that buzzing?" she said to the live stream. I angled the drone slightly closer, making sure the camera caught the detail of her robe tie, the one labeled in the boutique invoice. Talia jumped up. "Okay, nope. Someone is spying. This is harassment. That better not be who I think it is." She threw a towel in the air, an impressively useless move, considering drones don't fear cotton. The towel flopped into the pool with a very unspiritual splash. Comments exploded. "OMG, who is that? Girl, call someone. Is this part of the live stream?" I pulled the drone back just enough to avoid collision, but not enough to comfort her ego. She yelled something about legal protection and personal boundaries. Meanwhile, hearts and laughing emojis stacked like confetti. I didn't linger. I steered the drone home, quiet as a digital ghost. When it landed in the backyard, I powered it down and sat on the grass for a moment, just breathing in the soft chirp of suburban birds and distant lawnmowers. I hadn't touched her. I hadn't threatened her. I'd simply introduced her to a truth she already knew. Affairs happen in private, but consequences arrive with an audience. By dinner time, Rowan was home, Storm in a suit. "You've been messing with Talia," he said before even setting his keys down. "Oh," I said. "So we're naming her now." He rubbed his forehead. "She's upset. Someone was hovering a drone over her house during a live stream. Do you realize what kind of exposure that causes?" "I do," I said. "Seems inconvenient." "You can't do that, Elara. That's harassment." "And what was the hotel stay?" I asked. "Professional morale building." He swallowed. "You're making this worse than it has to be." "No," I said. "I'm making it proportionate." He stared at me the way someone looks at a locked door they used to walk through easily. "You're not the person I married," he said. "That's the first honest thing you've said in weeks." He paced, then tried a softer tone. "We can fix this. I know I messed up, but you're escalating." "I'm organizing," I corrected. "There's a difference." He tried to argue, but there was nothing left in his arsenal except repetition. When he finally went upstairs, I stayed in the living room and checked Talia's feed again. She'd deleted the live stream, then posted a story. "Some people are threatened by your glow. Protect your energy." The comments were full of sympathy, heart emojis, and one curious question. "Is this about the guy from the hotel?" Oh, this was spreading. Faster than Rowan could contain it. At 9 p.m., I got a message from an unknown number. "You think this is funny? You don't know what you're doing. Back off." I took a screenshot, saved it in the court folder. Then I replied, "No worries. I save my humor for the closing statements." She didn't text again. The next morning, Rowan left for work earlier than usual actually, which told me his fear was starting to outrun his arrogance. I watched him from the window, pacing near his car before getting in, probably rehearsing excuses. He looked smaller. Not physically, just diminished. Like a man who finally realized the ground he built his life on wasn't cement, but damp cardboard. I drove to the cafe downtown and ordered my usual. The barista, a kind man with rainbow shoelaces, leaned in and said, "Hey, funny question. Wasn't your husband the guy on that tech podcast? I heard he's in some kind of trouble." "That's so," I said, stirring my drink. "Corporate trouble or romantic trouble?" He laughed. "Word is, both." See? The system works. Not the loyalty system, the neighborhood one. When I got home, I found Rowan on the phone, pacing again, voice raised. "No, I didn't falsify anything. The hotel stay was for professional simulation. No, I did not misuse company funds. Look, can we keep this internal?" Internal. A word that always sounds like a plea when someone uses it in panic. He hung up, looked at me. "This is getting out of control," he said. "No," I said. "It's just exiting your control." He pointed a finger. "You don't understand the stakes." "Then explain them," I said, "but this time use true statements." He opened his mouth, closed it, picked up his keys, left again. I didn't chase. I didn't yell. I just sat down, opened my laptop, and added a new step to the plan. Step 4. Let the rumors do half the work. Then I smiled. A real smile this time. Not because I'd won, but because finally he was losing on his own playing field, and because I wasn't even close to finished. The thing about suburban gossip is that it doesn't travel in straight lines. It moves like sprinkler mist, wide, drifting, watered by whoever feels emotionally underhydrated. By the time Thursday rolled around, Rowan's ethical review had evolved into at least 5 separate narratives, none of which resembled the truth, but all of which were close enough to sting. According to the neighborhood rumor mill, Rowan had either 1. Hacked a resort for coupon codes, 2. Tried to expense a romantic getaway as emotional research, 3. Been scammed by a woman selling scented candles as cryptocurrency, 4. Been caught in corporate misconduct with edible strawberries, or 5. Joined a pyramid retreat disguised as cybersecurity training. Honestly, I liked number 3 the best. I didn't start any of those rumors. I just didn't correct them. People assume the worst when you say nothing, and silence is the most persuasive narrator in the suburbs. By 9 a.m., I'd already received a just checking in call from Judith, HOA treasurer, unofficial neighborhood historian, and human satellite dish. She spoke the way some people eat soup, slowly and with exaggerated effort. "Elara, dear, is it true Rowan's company froze his accounts? That sounds awfully stressful." "Oh, it's not that dramatic," I said. "They're just reviewing the romantic reimbursement sector." Silence on her end, as she tried to decide whether I'd invented a department or exposed a scandal. "Well," she finally said, "let us know if you need anything. I make an excellent banana bread when people are navigating transitions." "Noted," I said. "I'll keep you updated on our carb needs." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and pulled up Talia's feed. Her follower count had dropped by about 1,500 since yesterday's drone incident. Her comments were filled with sympathy, confusion, and a new theme. "Didn't you just go on that fancy hotel trip?" A few followers were asking whether she'd accidentally outed a married guy. She hadn't responded. Influencers thrive on mystery until mystery turns into math, and math turns into receipts. Her silence was starting to look less spiritual and more strategic. I decided it was time to give her a little nudge. Not a confrontation, not a threat. Just a reminder that she had entered a game she didn't understand, and I was writing the scoreboard. So I printed a still frame from her live stream, robe, hat, poolside smirk, and slipped it into an envelope with a handwritten note. "Nice wrap. Shame about the audience. No signature, no address on the envelope, just her name and building number." I tucked it into her mailbox on my way to the grocery store. A small act, but not a pointless one. Confidence shrinks fastest when it starts hearing its own echo. Later that afternoon, I invited Iris for tea. It wasn't kindness. It was logistics. You don't destroy someone in a suburb. You let their circle do it organically, the way mold eats drywall. She arrived wearing oversized sunglasses, as if the sun itself might be carrying a subpoena. I feel like I'm walking into a crime documentary, she said. You're not, I said. Those usually include remorse. She laughed, then examined me, scanning for cracks. You look calm. I like knowing where the exits are. She leaned in. Tell me honestly, did Rowan really charge a resort stay to the company? Oh, not just any resort, I said. A couple's retreat, with velvet curtains, and snacks. She nearly choked on her tea. He didn't. Oh, he did, and he filed it under system testing. Iris covered her mouth like she was stifling either a laugh or an aneurysm. This is going to destroy him. Correction, I said. He destroyed himself. I'm just documenting in high resolution. That tea session did exactly what it needed to. Seeded the sharper, more accurate narrative into the neighborhood bio-network. I didn't need to spread the truth. I just needed it whispered in the right ears. By evening, Rowan was pacing again. More calls. More explanations that sounded like someone trying to untangle Christmas lights while blindfolded. Around 7:30, I left the house with a small bag in hand. Inside, a nail keychain, a pair of latex gloves, and a lovely minimalist idea called Balanced Consequences. Talia's Tesla was parked in her visitor spot, a gleaming, self-important pearl-white capsule with eco-friendly smugness. I walked past it once, calmly, as if looking for my car. Then again, slower. Then, on the third pass, I slipped the gloves on, dropped my keys, bent to pick them up, and let the keychain's nail glide a perfect whisper-thin line across the driver's door. Not deep, not destructive, just visible enough to be unmistakable. A cosmetic reminder that expensive surfaces don't prevent consequences. Some people say revenge is best served cold. I disagree. Revenge is best served smooth, subtle, almost unnoticeable. Like a line no one sees being drawn until the whole picture has shifted. I got home before Rowan returned. I washed my hands, made tea, edited portraits for a client, and felt the kind of calm that only arrives after the step you've been planning finally exists in the world instead of in your head. He walked in at 10 p.m., exhausted, voice sanded down by non-stop calls. The firm wants a second interview tomorrow, he said, with legal present. That sounds formal, I said. Maybe bring strawberries to lighten the mood. Elara, this isn't funny, he snapped, rubbing his temples. They think I misused expense systems. They're not implying, I said. They're investigating. He stared at me like a person afraid their reflection might answer back. And you don't even care, he said. Incorrect, I replied. I care deeply. I just happen to care in the opposite direction of you. He sank into a chair. Why are you doing this? Oh, Rowan, I said, leaning against the table. I'm not doing this. You did. I'm curating. He looked at me the way someone looks at the ground after falling, betrayed by the surface they trusted. He didn't talk again the rest of the night. The next morning, a new post appeared on Talia's feed. When the universe challenges you, stay aligned. Not everyone vibrates at your level. Comments were half support, half suspicion. One follower wrote, "Girl, did someone scratch your car?" Another, "Energy vampires everywhere." I took a screenshot, archived it, labeled it, Car Consequence Phase 1. Around noon, HOA held a committee meeting. I attended. Rowan did too, which surprised me. The room smelled like air freshener and frustration, the signature scent of HOA gatherings. While they debated whether a mailbox counted as yard decor, Rowan leaned over and hissed, "You need to stop whatever you're doing." "I'm attending a meeting," I said. "Very legal." "You're turning people against me." I raised a brow. Did I charge a romantic suite to a joint account and call it research? Iris, one row over, stifled a laugh badly enough to make her chair shake. The room kept debating signage regulations, while Rowan flushed in quiet panic. There's something almost athletic about watching someone try to swim through social consequences. When the meeting adjourned, Rowan cornered me outside. "Enough, this ends now." "Oh, sweetheart," I said, adjusting my sunglasses. "We're not even at the plot twist yet." I walked away. That was the moment I knew I had crossed the midpoint, when he realized the story wasn't circling, it was climbing. That night, I sat in my studio and edited my newest photo series. Spa frames, quiet rooms, barefoot hallways, a reflection of myself in a soaking tub, expression unreadable. I titled the folder, Self-Care, the Refund Edition. A future exhibit, a future punchline, a future ledger of poetic symmetry. Around midnight, I heard Rowan's office door slam. The audit had escalated again. His voice was sharp, words clipped. "No, I'm not admitting to wrongdoing. I'm saying the charges were part of a simulation. No, not personal. This is being taken out of context." Same script, different pitch. I added a new line to my plan. Step 5, let him talk his way into a corner. Then, turn on the light. Before sleep, I checked Talia's feed again. She had posted a selfie with a caption. "Someone vandalized my car. Police report filed." Sure you did, I thought. Nothing scares influencers more than things that don't look filtered. But what made me smile wasn't the post. It was one of the comments underneath it. "Are you the girl from the hotel receipt?" A crack in the mirror. Not from me. From the crowd. That's when you know the plan is working, when gravity starts assisting. By the time I went to bed, I didn't need to imagine the next step. The story was accelerating on its own. And I was right where I wanted to be. Not fighting it, guiding it, quietly, precisely, like someone repainting the world, one carefully placed stroke at a time. By the time the weekend hit, Rowan was a man held together by caffeine, half-formed excuses, and whatever thin thread of denial he still believed was invisible. He'd stopped making eye contact with me entirely, not out of guilt, but because looking at me meant acknowledging I knew exactly where the trapdoor was, and that he kept stepping on it. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of silence that usually means someone is rehearsing a speech in their head. Rowan sat on the edge of the couch, tie still around his neck, even though it was his day off, scrolling through messages with the intensity of a surgeon who wouldn't admit he'd left instruments inside the patient. "You've started a narrative I can't control," he finally said, voice tight. "No," I said, slicing an apple with unbothered precision. "You started it. I'm just improving the pacing." He stood abruptly, pacing the room. "The firm requested access logs. They're looking into every charge, every message, every hotel transaction, every account sync. I'm being framed like I was funneling funds for personal use." "Well," I said, popping a slice into my mouth. "Were you?" His eyes snapped to mine. "You're using this to destroy me." "I'm using this to document you," I said. "If destruction is the side effect, you may want to review your own actions." He let out a bitter laugh. "You think you're clever, but you're not in control here, Elara. This could blow back on you." "I know," I said, "which is why I made sure everything I did was legal, backed up, and time-stamped. Can you say the same?" The look he gave me wasn't anger anymore. It was realization. The kind that arrives when a person understands the ground they assumed they owned was actually leased, month to month, no renewal option. He grabbed his keys and left the house, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frames on the walls. I didn't flinch. Slamming doors is for people who lost the argument but want to pretend they didn't. The moment he left, I pressed play on my own agenda. Phase 5 wasn't about hurting him. It was about letting reality apply pressure in the precise places he'd left unguarded. Someone like Rowan spends years thinking consequences are negotiable, that smart people don't get cornered. But you don't have to outfight someone who thinks like that. You just have to let them run out of exits. By noon, I logged into the shared cloud again and uploaded the second set of spa photos. Close-ups of calm water, folded towels, my hand holding a glass of champagne beside a receipt labeled Redeemed Points Balance. 0. Not petty. Just poetic. The upload triggered an automatic share to his devices, including the one at his office. I didn't send the files with commentary. Silence carries sharper edges than words. At 1 p.m., I texted Jake next door. Drone still available? Need one more flight? He replied instantly, charged and ready. Want me to fly or you? I typed back, I'll fly. You just keep your garage door unlocked in case I need to ditch the aircraft like a spy movie. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji, then, I love when you don't give context. The plan wasn't to use the drone again for Talia. She was already spiraling in her own echo chamber of protect your aura posts and passive-aggressive quotes about fake supporters. No, the drone's purpose now was logistics, observation, angle checking, because Rowan wasn't the only one getting a surprise. Around 4:30, Rowan returned, face tight, jaw tense, eyes stuck in long blink frustration. I had to make a statement to internal audit, he said, tossing his briefcase onto the couch. They're bringing in outside review, legal, HR, finance. Quite the audience, I said. Shame you didn't book a bigger theatre. He ignored the comment. They asked if I had proof the stay was work-related. They want documentation, witnesses, purpose logs. Do you understand what that means? Yes, I said. It means the strawberries were not a deductible expense. Elara, he snapped, I need you to back me up. I turned slowly, as though I wasn't already smiling on the inside. Back you up how? Tell them the trip was for us. Tell them you knew. Tell them it wasn't misused funds. So you want me to lie, I said, affectionately. He didn't blink. It would fix everything. That's the most honest sentence you've spoken in months, I said, and the answer is no. You're being vindictive. Oh, no, I said. Vindictive would have been keying your car. I'm just implementing consequences. He ran a hand over his face. You don't get it. This could ruin my career. You don't get it, I said softly. It already has. He stared at me, the way someone looks at a locked safe they no longer remember the code for. Then he said it, the line that revealed everything that was ever wrong between us. You owe me. I let the silence sit, a slow, humid pause. Then, I owed you loyalty, I said, as long as you honored it. You turned it into a currency. I'm just cashing the remainder. His face hardened. The kind of expression people wear when they finally understand the fight isn't about winning. It's about losing less. He stormed upstairs. I let him. At 6 p.m., I powered up the drone and sent it into the sky. Not toward Talia, not over neighbors. Toward Rowan's office building, less than a mile away as the crow, or drone, flies. Not close enough to invade privacy. Just near enough to view the parking lot. There it was, Rowan's car, parked crooked, like its owner had sprinted into the building rather than walked. I recorded a slow pan of the lot. Calm, steady, neutral. Then I steered the drone home, clipped its wings back into its case, and wrote the next line in my digital file. Step 6, gather visuals. No commentary, let them speak. That night, Rowan came downstairs again, not with anger, but something far more unsteady, desperation. Look, he said, voice almost pleading. I know I messed up, but this is getting out of control. I could lose everything. Then you should have been more careful with the things you wanted to keep, I said. I can't fix this alone. You didn't break it alone, I said. He stared. Then, finally, what do you want? It was the first real question he'd asked me since this began. I walked forward, slow, calm, measured. I want you to feel what I felt, not for a minute, for long enough to understand it wasn't an accident. He didn't respond, so I kept going. I want you to realize that the world doesn't owe you immunity, that relationships aren't staged retreats you can expense, that people are not loyalty programs. His voice hit the lowest registers I'd ever heard from him. You're not asking for an apology. No, I said. I'm past the phase where apologies mattered. Something in him cracked, not visibly, not dramatically, but like a hinge starting to rust. He sat down. I walked away. At 10 p.m., I opened my laptop and drafted the email that would finalize what the divorce lawyer had already outlined: fault-based dissolution based on financial deception, breach of marital trust, and asset misuse. With enough attached documentation to make any judge raise an eyebrow so high it hit the ceiling. Screenshots, account logs, invoice scans, timestamps, photos, cloud sync records, his own messages, no fiction, only receipts. I didn't send the email yet, not because I doubted it, but because everything in a story like this lands harder at the right moment. Timing isn't just important. Timing is revenge's favorite assistant. The next morning, Rowan came down looking like someone who hadn't slept and had tactical regrets. His hair was uncombed, shirt wrinkled, and his usual cologne cloud was missing, either forgotten or out of budget. I need you to come with me, he said. To what? I asked. A meeting. They want to hear from both of us. I'm not going anywhere, I said. You can explain your own strawberries. This is serious. So am I. He clenched his jaw. You're destroying everything. No, I said. I'm documenting everything. There's a difference. The destruction? That's self-inflicted. He stared at me again, but not like he was trying to intimidate me, like he was trying to recognize me. And failing. By noon, the audit escalated into a full suspension. Not fired yet. Suspended pending outcome, which is corporate language for pack your things, emotionally, just in case. He got the call in the kitchen. I heard every word. We're placing you on leave. Yes, with cause. No, reimbursement won't fix this. Yes, we have full records. No, we don't think this was research. When he hung up, he didn't move. I waited. He lifted his head slowly. You knew this would happen, he said. Yes, I said. That's why it did. He didn't throw anything, didn't shout, didn't even accuse. He just walked upstairs, like someone who'd finally located the ending of the story and didn't like the page number. I stared out the window. Somewhere in the distance, a mower hummed. Kids rode bikes. Someone grilled something that smelled like normal life. The neighborhood kept moving, not out of indifference, but because ruin doesn't make the world stop. It just makes the ruined person think it should. I opened my laptop, drafted one more message, this one to my lawyer, subject line. Proceed. Then I added the final note to the plan. Step 7. After the collapse, leave before the dust settles. That night, Rowan didn't come downstairs for dinner. I didn't make any. I heated soup for myself, ate it in silence, and filed the moment under calm victories. Before bed, I passed by the office door. The lights were off, the screen was still open, and on it, in bold, unemotional font, was the final corporate notice. Access revoked, review terminated, pending board action. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply reached up, turned off the monitor, and walked away. This wasn't triumph. This was symmetry. And tomorrow would be the moment where the symmetry finally snapped shut, just the way I planned it. The morning the final phase began, the sky looked like it hadn't made up its mind. Halfway between sunshine and a storm, the same way Rowan was halfway between denial and collapse. I woke up before he did, not because I was restless, but because I wanted the silence first. There's a different kind of quiet in a house where the truth has already detonated, but the person responsible hasn't accepted the blast radius yet. I made coffee, not for him, just for me. One mug, one chair at the table, one life already shifting into its new outline. At 8:17 a.m., Rowan finally came downstairs. He didn't say good morning, didn't look at me, didn't even pretend to function. He just sat, hands pressed into his temples, like maybe if he held his head still long enough, time would reverse and erase the part where he handed a romantic hotel invoice to corporate accounting. He didn't ask me for help anymore. That stage was gone. "What happened to the firm?" I asked casually, like I was asking about a delayed package. "They froze my access," he said, voice flat. "They're calling a board session next week. It's not official, but I'm done there." He didn't look at me while he said it. His voice had lost its confident meter, the cadence of a man used to being listened to even when he was wrong. I nodded once. "Actions have outcomes. That's not new." He didn't fight. He didn't even defend himself. That's when I knew this wasn't just defeat. It was understanding. Late, but real. There's a particular expression people have when they realize the consequences they always outran have finally caught up and sat down beside them. It looks nothing like panic. Panic is loud. Real consequence acceptance is quiet. It looks like a person trying to stand but finding the floor change shape. "You planned all of this," he muttered. "No," I corrected. "I responded to all of this. I made a mistake." "You made a series," I said, "and I simply gave them structure." He let out a sound, something like a laugh that had lost its place and forgotten how to be laughter. "You're different." "I upgraded," I said. "You stayed outdated." He stood, paced, sat, stood again. Not because he had purpose, because he didn't. Movement is what people do when the world shrinks and they can't accept how small it got. "You win," he finally said. "Oh, Rowan," I murmured. "This wasn't a contest. If it were, I would have aimed for a trophy, not a lesson." That landed. I could tell by the way his breath stalled and stayed shallow for a moment, like a person stepping into a cold pool. At 9:30, I got the email I'd been waiting for. Subject line: "Filing confirmed." My lawyer had officially submitted the divorce paperwork, fault-based, fully backed by financial misconduct evidence. No guesswork, no rumors. Just documented fact, formatted with the kind of precision courts love and liars fear. I didn't announce it. I didn't print it out dramatically and wave it in his face. I just closed the laptop and mentally shifted the story into its final movement. Because now it was time for the last part of the plan, the physical confrontation, the part where the lover, the cheating husband, and the woman who refused to be the side plot finally occupied the same scene. Talia texted first. "We need to talk. Not a greeting, not an apology, not even a question, just entitlement wrapped in bold font." She followed it with, "I know you've been messing with me. You don't scare me. Rowan told me everything." I stared at the message for a long moment, not because I was surprised, only because I was impressed by the timeline. Rowan had cracked faster than I expected. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I logged into her Instagram. She'd posted an empowerment video that morning, her in workout gear, looking angry and poorly caffeinated, talking about toxic feminine sabotage. That was my cue. I texted her back. "Great, let's talk. In person. Neutral place." She responded instantly. "Rowan's house. 1 hour." I actually laughed. Out loud. The audacity was almost athletic. "Perfect," I wrote. "I'll see you there." I didn't tell Rowan she was coming. That wasn't my job anymore. Let the man discover what it feels like to have surprises land on his carpet instead of mine. 1 hour later, I was in the living room, seated, composed, waiting. No raised voice, no trembling hands. If there was an emotion present, it wasn't rage. It was clarity. The kind of clarity you only get when you've already processed the hurt and moved into the part where you architect the response. At 11:05, the doorbell rang. I didn't answer it. I waited. Rowan opened the door instead. The way he said her name told me everything. "Talia? What are you doing here?" And then her voice, sharp, impatient, not nearly as soft when she wasn't performing for an audience. "So, we're just ignoring me now? After everything? You let your wife stalk me like some suburban spy thriller, And I'm supposed to stay quiet? They stepped inside. Then he saw me. Why are you just sitting there? He demanded. Because I already did the work, I said. Talia looked at me the way people look at smoke alarms during a fire, annoyed that something is warning them, instead of admitting they caused it. You scratched my car, she said. No, I corrected. I edited your reality. Your car was just the canvas. You're insane, she snapped. And you're unoriginal, I replied, but at least one of us got a plot arc. She turned to Rowan. Are you seriously letting her ruin everything? I thought you were handling this. Handling, I repeated softly. Is that what he called it? Because based on recent events, it feels more like collapsing. Talia stepped toward me, like maybe she thought physical proximity translated to intimidation. She was about my height, but she carried the posture of someone who always had the camera angled upward at her, so she looked taller online. You need to apologize, she said. To me, to Rowan, to the people watching all of this. I don't apologize to guest stars, I said. Her jaw dropped. Rowan stepped between us, not in protection, but in panic. Everyone calm down. Calm? I echoed. Rowan, the calm part was before you booked a couple's resort on a shared card and called it a workplace simulation. After that, this became a learning module. You've taken this too far, he said. No, I said. You took it too far when you assumed I'd stay quiet. I just matched your distance from the truth and walked it in the opposite direction. Talia rolled her eyes. Can we skip the poetic speech and get to the point? Oh, absolutely, I said, standing. I walked right up to her, close enough to see the tiny crack in her fake-lashed confidence. The point is, I'm done. She blinked. Done? Yes, I said, done answering, done reacting, done playing the role you two wrote for me. You see, I didn't ruin either of you. I just stopped protecting the parts of your lives that crumbled the moment someone looked directly at them. She scoffed. You think you won something? Oh, I did, I said. Freedom, assets, narrative control, and, best of all, a front row seat to both of you discovering there's no audience left for the little show you thought you were headlining. Then I looked at Rowan. You wanted me quiet. You wanted me complicit. You wanted me forgettable. Instead, I became the consequence. He swallowed. His voice came out thin. So what now? Now? I said. Now I leave. I walked toward the stairs, but paused midway and looked back down at them. Two people who thought they were getting away with something, now realizing they hadn't even survived the first act. Oh, I added like an afterthought. Talia, you might want to check your bank app. The spa photos I took. One of them is being featured in a wellness magazine. The brand paid me more than the price of your silk wrap. A fun little cycle, isn't it? You got the robe, I got the paycheck. Her face soured. Rowan stared like he was doing math that hurt. And Rowan, I continued, lawyer says the judge is very interested in your financial patterns. Apparently, charging luxury hotel suites to joint accounts is frowned upon during asset division. Who knew? I turned, reached the top of the stairs, then delivered the final line. Not shouted, not dramatic, just simple. You both chose the wrong person to underestimate. And then I walked away. Down the hall. Into my studio. I picked up the packed suitcase already waiting by the door. Not a dramatic exit bag, just clothes, hard drives, camera gear, toothbrush, and the version of myself that didn't wait for anyone's permission. As I opened the side door, I heard them still downstairs, arguing now, panicked, turning on each other the way sinking people do when the boat wasn't actually built for two. I didn't stay to listen. I didn't need to. The story had hit its final note. Revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was exact, measured, tidy, like a program that executes, logs the results, and shuts down cleanly. I stepped outside into the sharp afternoon air, locked the door behind me, and walked to my car without looking back. Not because I was escaping, because I was finished. The house was no longer mine. The marriage was no longer mine. The wreckage was no longer mine. The ending, however, that was all me.